Middlebury is part of a big journey for me. It's not the end of the journey. Home is a small town in Texas, about an hour outside of Houston, and I grew up 5 minutes from a state park with alligators and a lot of lakes, so I just grew up in nature. Second home was Nevada, moving to Las Vegas, Nevada, where I was on my own. You know, I think my 20s were all about my own independence. Then Vermont recently, that's where I expanded my family from just my husband and I to a dog and a daughter. A journey is about being brave, you know, and sometimes there will be moments where you can't be brave, and that's okay. My parents never went to college, and no one in my family had been abroad. All of those factors combined, I just assumed, well, I won't be going abroad anytime soon, or that's just not what we do. When I was 20, I was at Texas A&M. My friend was walking across campus one day and she said, "Do you want to go to France this summer?" And I said, "Oh, I'd love to, but I don't have any money, and you know, I don't go to France. Like, I have not left the US." She said, "Well, you should go talk to Ralph." So Ralph was the head of the department, as someone who understood how transformational a trip abroad could be. He changed my life, because if I had not done that trip, I would have just gone through college and I would have stayed in Texas and thought, well, that's what you do. And that summer was, you know, you have like the best summer of your life, but that was the best summer of my life. And it was a summer of 23 of us on a bus with this big French man with a giant bull tattoo on his arm driving us around. And our French tour guide, Jean-Jacques, teaching us French songs on the bus. And we went all over France. One time we stayed in a vacation village in southern France, and the family had a big soiree in their bar, and then it was just this exchange of music. Someone from the US would be playing the guitar, and it was a song that the French people knew, and I just thought, this is so cool. This is what the world is about. I left that program, went back to school, and I was supposed to graduate, but Ralph said, "How would you feel about going back for a full year?" I said, "I'd love it." He created a scholarship that I was able to use, and I went back to Normandy, and I was able to graduate a year later with a double major in French and English. I'm 36 and I still have 2 of my grandmothers and like 30 cousins. I have a family. I'm the most different person in that entire family. They'll tell you, you know, Joani is from space with love, you know. My mom and dad worked really hard to give me what I had, and it wasn't about the physical possessions. It was just about, like, they gave me a lot of love, and I saw them work really hard for us. And my mom, when I would travel, she would say, "Well, you just see it with your eyes for me," you know. And so maybe too I felt there was some obligation on my part to keep doing more after France, and I graduated, and I just couldn't go home because there was something in me that was saying, you'll be a failure if you go home, because you're on this path now, you know, and you've got to show them that it wasn't all for nothing. So I went to Las Vegas, and it wasn't easy starting out in Las Vegas. There was some point where I really wanted to go home, but I thought, no, you don't go home, Joani. And I would just push myself and stay on the journey, you know, just keep having the journey. And so then it was like, at what cost? You miss your family, you're missing all of these things. At what cost is this, you know, you doing this journey? Las Vegas was a good run. It was 7 years. I had a love-hate relationship with it at first, but it wasn't going to be the end of me. I don't know how to just say, well, this is it, I'm done. Like, that's the end of it. So my journey is just going to be right here. And no, you keep going. There's so much to see and do. I have to just explore this some more, even if it means my heart is hurting because I'm far from home. Vermont was adventure, and for me, that's part of the journey too, is if you're gonna work really hard and make these sacrifices, then make it worth it. I've never not worked with international students. International students have always been a huge part of my world. That's what's also helped this place feel like home when I've missed my family. People share very personal things with me and vice versa. I've never called or referred to anyone as a kid because you're all adults to me. And I see you all with much respect of just being on a journey too. We're just at different points in time on our journey. There are things I'll never be able to relate to that a student has gone through and vice versa. But I can just relate to the fact that we're all human beings and that sometimes things hurt. Sometimes things are gonna sit with us for a long time and we'll never fully be able to understand why they were that way. There's always a new class that comes in that their excitement just kind of like rejuvenates you and reminds you that this is important work, like, and not even in terms of my professional role, it's just as a human being, when you think about what are we doing here? What are we doing with this time? To help one another just kind of get by and get their feet firmly on the ground is important. When I look back at Middlebury, it's those moments of like being at commencement with students and celebrating their success here, but also knowing their family couldn't come, you know, and it was important to me to be there for students, because everybody, it feels good to be cheered on. Even when I had Nina, when I took her to her first commencement, just to have her kind of be held and passed from one student to another. That's my daughter's first introduction to the world, you know. And almost a month and a half ago, I was leaving to come to work. I walked out and there was a giant mama bear underneath the balcony. And she walked out from under the balcony and looked at me. She turned her head and looked at me, and I looked at her. And I went inside and I shut the door and I screamed like, bear. And I've been waiting all my life to say bear. So I was like, bear, bear, Ramon, wake up, bear. And we ran out and she was taking her slow time, walking back into the woods, and her 3 baby cubs were nearby. And I thought, it was like seeing a dinosaur, like seeing a fish walking around your yard. You know, you don't expect to see that. And I was always terrified of bears since the day I moved to Vermont. But it was just, I cried. I thought, she's so majestic. She's just a creature. She's just a creature with her babies, you know. She's just trying to feed her babies. But I thought, that's it. I've seen the bear. It's time to go.